There's a few different ways to add CSS to your page. One way is known as Inline Styles, and that's when you actually add it right inside of the tag. Another way is externals, CSS Linking, and that's when you create a document, a whole separate document that it would be something like style.css, and you'd link that to your HTML document. And the other one is embedded or internal CSS, and that's when you add the CSS styles to the head of your document, and then when the visitor views it, that CSS gets rendered and changes the visual aspect of your page. So in this video, what we're going to do is actually add embedded style to our document. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to find an example of embedded CSS from the web. Now I pulled up this example from HTML dog, and here's the link, but you don't necessarily have to use this page because there's plenty of other ones. Just Google embedded CSS and you'll find tons of examples, and what you're looking for is something similar to what I'm about to copy and paste. So if you look closely at this, I'm going to copy all of this and I'm going to paste it in to my document. Here we go. Now before I actually paste it, I need to be clear where I'm going to paste it. The embedded styles need to go into the head of your document. What else is in the head? Well, I put my title, I have my meta description, and now I'm going to add some spaces and add my CSS. And here we go. I'm going to take out the guts of the example that I found, and I just want to start off with the HTML part of the embedded CSS. So before we could actually put CSS code inside of an HTML document, as I said before, CSS is a different language, so we have to kind of I don't know, compartmentalize it in the page, if you will, or kind of like, you know, wrap it up in something so it's safe inside the HTML page. We do that, quote unquote, wrapping up inside this style tag. And what you're looking for is something similar to this. We have good old-fashioned HTML over here, and this may be new to a couple of you. This is actually an attribute to the style, and this is what you're looking for. It'd be style, and essentially this is the code. You want to make sure that this is closed out, so it's encapsulated in there, and now in the middle of that we can actually start writing some CSS. Now CSS has its own syntax altogether, and first it starts with a target. Now a target is what it's the element that you're targeting, and what I mean is you have all these different choices. Currently we have at least two different choices. We have a P and we have an H1. Those are going to be the targets of our style. So let's do just that. I'll show you exactly the syntax. Here we go. I'm going to tab it in here. I'm going to indent my my code that I'm about to write. Not necessary. I'm just doing it for my own visual, keeping it visually neat, the code. And I'm going to start with, let's target the paragraph. If this were HTML, we know that we have to define paragraph this way. But since we're CSSing at this point, if you will, we're going to start just with P space. Okay, so now the CSS knows it's ready to do whatever we want, but specifically to the paragraph. And that's what I'm going to start with, these curly brackets. Here we go. Curly bracket that way and curly bracket the other way. And now inside of here I'll add a return to that, maybe another return, and go up here. Now we've encapsulated the CSS attributes we're about to apply to P inside of those brackets. Now we're actually ready to give it something. Of course, there's a whole bunch of attributes there in the universe of CSS, and it's not a matter of memorizing them, really. It's a matter of Googling it. You know, you could Google all sorts of stuff, you know, CSS fonts, CSS font size, margins, padding, all that good stuff. It could be a bit overwhelming, but at the same time, the world of options that you have really give you a lot of flexibility. And you know, the benefit is, if you're completely new to this stuff, a program like Dreamweaver is great because it already, you know, you kind of have some dialog boxes where you click the different font size and the different color and all that stuff, and it just pops it right there for you. Obviously, as you get more mature in your skills, you end up memorizing them. I'm the worst at memorizing these things, so I definitely love a program like Dreamweaver. But I just want to say it's good to know exactly how it works, because Dreamweaver is going to automatically generate this code for you, which on one hand is awesome because it saves you a ton of time, but on the other hand, sometimes it just generates crappy code. And that's why looking at it first from this perspective gives you a foundation, so when Dreamweaver is doing all the heavy lifting for you, you could kind of go back in the code view and tweak it out a little bit. So with that said, let's start with a basic attribute, which is going to be color. Now I'm going to go color. Now that's a CSS attribute, and then I'm going to separate that with the colon, and now I have to actually define a color that I want. If you want to define specific colors, you could do them in hexadecimal, which is a way. It's either it's like an RGB thing, like for example 666 would be great because you kind of given red, blue, yellow, or did I say red, blue, yellow? I didn't mean that. Red, blue, green, red, green, red, blue. Goodness. Okay. See, that's why I shouldn't tangent off like that. Here we go. We'll just say that that's the way to do it, and you could either put hexadecimal. There's a bunch of different ways, or just gray, and then you terminate it with a semicolon. So if you put exactly this in, P, the curly braces, and then color, colon, whatever the color you want, I put gray, and then semicolon, and you save it, what we should end up with is, let's go back to my document, is all of this paragraph text should end up gray. Let's see. Yeah, and in fact it did. So similarly, let's just go here and style our H1, and we'll do the same thing. This time we'll do color, and we'll do red. And let's see how that works out. All right, pretty cool. Now, I don't know if this is really the colors that I want, but it's more just for example. But this doesn't actually solve the main problem that I had, which was the fact that the fonts are two different styles. They're two different font styles. So that's what I'm going to move on to next. There's a few different ways you could actually define the color of an element. As you see in my example, I just picked the actual words gray and red because I knew them right off my head. But some other ways that are worth your time investigating are, for one, there's Rgb Color, which is what you see on the right, like this, and you could just straight take this RGB value, and if you pop it into your code just like that, you could save it, and if we look back at the result, okay, you see that that becomes red. Or you could use a hex value, which if you use the hex value, you got to make sure you have that pound sign beforehand. And if you go and put that into your code, just like so, you see it turned it blue. I think hex is by default what Dreamweaver, I'm pretty sure it is what Dreamweaver uses for colors. Is there one way better than the other? No, not at all. In all honesty, it's just there's a few there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing in any kind of coding, actually. So there you go. Those are just some things worth your time to research. And if you just Google hex, HEX color picker or CSS colors, you'll find more than enough information out there that'll give you all sorts of options and colors. So you're certainly not limited. You're only limited by your imagination, really.